Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Construction CEO. I'm Jonathan, your host, and today I have the president of ST Fabrication, Jesse. Welcome to the show, Jesse.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. Good to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So we were actually just talking about this right before recording, and so I know that obviously you mentioned about 90% of the business is known through the ST Fabrication brand and company, but there are other business units as well that include JBiz Construction, JBiz Coating. So I'm curious, could you just describe each of those business units and then
Sure.
the overall, you mentioned the holding company as well.
Yeah. So we bought, my business partner and I bought ST Fabrication in 2002. It was an existing company called ST Fabrication. It had been around since the mid-'70s, and the original owner, Bob and Sandy Todd, were partnered with another gentleman, Al Kerr, who built this business. They got tired, were ready to retire, and so we ended up buying the business. When we bought the business, we actually did an asset purchase, meaning we didn't actually buy their corporation, but we bought everything the corporation owned, the hard goods, the tools, their Rolodex of customers and vendors, and the employees that were there came. But we formed our own corporation. That corporation was JBiz Holdings, Inc., and we just did a DBA, or doing business as, ST Fabrication. Fast forward so that was 2002. Fast forward to 2008, we got into the 8A program, which is through the Small Business Administration. And one of the things that the 8A people talk to us about is, well, how are you going to market yourself as a prime if you are known as ST Fabrication? They recommended that we have a construction name. And so we, on the spur of the moment, said, okay, we'll launch another DBA, JBiz Construction. So that's how JBiz Construction came about. Then a few years ago, right, as COVID was starting, we knew that we wanted to start a paint division, so thus JBiz Coatings. So that's the history of the names. One company, one corporation, three different operating divisions.
That's great. So, we've known each other for some time now, and I've known this about your story, and this is where I would love to start off is you were a material scientist at Boeing prior to, acquiring what's now, like you mentioned, JBiz Holdings and all the three business units within that. How does a material scientist get into construction and go through the what's the story behind you eventually acquiring, because, even too, I know there's people that come into construction and may work at a company and then work their way eventually to owning or starting their own business. So what's your story of material scientists at Boeing into construction?
Yeah. So for us, that's really a story of faith. I had been with a group of business guys that I was associated with, really kind of devouring materials on success, entrepreneurship, business. I didn't really know that I was going to be in business, but this was the group of guys that I was hanging around. Rob Scott, others, that and that association really started developing a sense of discontent for me. I was at Boeing. I was prospering there. I really liked it. I loved being a scientist, and I was publishing journal articles. It was a good thing. But I knew that there was something more, so I was always interested in investing. I did my share of day trading in the 90s, like most guys at Boeing were doing, but it just wasn't really what I was hoping for as far as commercial success, actual dollars you get to put in your pocket at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I found myself, through a set of circumstances, no longer working at Boeing, and so kind of on a whim, hedging my bets, I contacted a Boeing guy that I knew, also from same group of men that we were hanging out together at church, and said, hey, you always were looking to buy a business. Send me the contact for the business broker. I really did that kind of as checking the box. I really expected that, because at this point I'd finished my my doctoral thesis. I was well respected in the industry. I just figured I'm going to get another job at a competitor to Boeing or similar industry. I ended up going to I missed one thing. I did go work at another aerospace firm for a year. That aerospace company put me in a role that was more sales and running these programs. So this was really a bizarre turn of events for me. I had been a sole contributor at Boeing working on, science projects basically, with no employees and nobody reporting to me. And all of a sudden I'm put into this director role at a company with 60 employees and $20 million of contracts that were being done by my team, program managers, project managers, and then 60 odd people on the shop floor. So it was a very different experience, but I liked it. But I didn't fit their corporate culture. And so after about a year, I was let go from that firm. And so I fully expected to be at another company similar to that. That just never really happened. It was entering into a real economic downturn in 2001. And then about 6 months into being laid off and looking for work, 9/11 happened. So there was a confluence of events there that kind of drove me to this opportunity. And so that's what happened. I had sent off to the business broker, hey, here's who I am. I worked at Boeing. I worked at this other aerospace company. Here's my education, salary history. They send back one prospectus for one company, which happened to be ST Fabrication. So I had been reading different books on investing and entrepreneurship, and one of the books that I had read really focused on, okay, look for a business whose ownership is tired. Perhaps they're sick. They have no kids who want to take over. That's a good business to buy. And so, among other things. So that's started the process. My wife was not excited about the idea of buying a business. So it was a long process where every few months I would bring it back to her and say, hey, well, nobody else has made me a job offer, but we still have this out here. So we kind of danced around. After about 6 months of being laid off, she said, well, maybe there's something there. But we better go check with somebody else who might have wanted to buy a business at some point in the future, which was one and only person, my current business partner, Eric. So he and I looked at it together then for the first time, contacted an attorney, learned some do's and don'ts from our attorney about negotiating for buying and selling a business, and he helped us put it together. And so in June of 2002, we went ahead and bought ST Fabrication. And that's kind of how it came about. We started with 6 employees, and the company was doing about $1.4 million a year. And today we have about 70 employees, 70 to 80, it varies, and around $25 million a year.
Wow. So I guess with that, I'm curious, like on the, you're mentioning, so you mentioned that it was mainly your wife. Was it a risk decision to bring in a partner, or was that like you wanted to like not have it all?
Yeah. We, honestly, I had never even considered being a business owner that way. I thought about being a sole contributor. Or I thought about, being an inventor. I didn't, think that, because my career path was science. The most that I had done in construction was 2 remodels on my own house. So I knew enough to be dangerous. Literally on the first day of work, when I came to ST Fab, which I now owned with Eric, the old owner, Al Kerr, who I have a great debt to gratitude. And he was supposed to stay on for 3 months. He stayed on for 8.5 years.
Wow.
I literally became, like his son. He taught me. But I did not know on day one what an embed was, which is kind of foundational to construction. And I just faked like I knew what it was. Okay, embed was something that's embed. I didn't know what it was. So I made copies. I used the copy machine. I set up the IT system. I brought technology to the company and just learned from him. So that's really our start.
That's great. So, did Eric have a background in construction too, or what?
He had a better background than I did. So he didn't just remodel 2 houses. He actually helped me with one of those remodels. He remodeled 15 different houses. So he knew construction. He left Boeing after 15 years, and then he actually worked at Johnson Controls. He worked at Honeywell. So he was used to the idea of bidding drawings and plan sets and turning in a bid the way that our whole construction world works. So he had that background. I didn't have any idea of that whole system that we're now involved with, bidding projects and winning projects, and none of that was something that I knew anything about when I bought the business on day one. So when we started working together with Al would spend time working with Eric on the estimating side. So he would estimate projects with Eric or give him a project to estimate, then Al would check his work. Once a job got in, I would help run the jobs and buy the material and, allocate hours to the shop. And we had, I mentioned we had 6 employees. So the foreman that I had was really good. He had worked for the ST Fabrication for many years, and he had his own shop for many years, and for a variety of, personal life, family reasons, he stopped running his own business and just came to work for ST Fabrication. So I had some good people right out of the gate, and so they took care of the shop. I began to run the operational side of things, once a job was won, and started working on marketing and sales. After a few years, first 3 years, we kept it that way. Then we flip-flopped. Eric got out of the role of estimating and operations. We hired some more senior PMs along the way that could handle some of that. I got another estimator on board that was helping Al, who's still estimating. And I really focused on top-line sales, and because I was going, from customer to customer with Al. He would introduce me. We would establish relationships, and I found that was a better role for me. And Eric really began to walk in the role of being the CFO and handling, the financial side of things, and I worked on top-line sales.
So, and I know that we both know this, but this industry is incredibly relational. Like, it's not like a simple, for me, I'm in marketing. Like, you don't just put something up and expect, no, like, it's all a relationship. It's a long game.
Absolutely.
Over years or even decades. So I'm curious, what were some of the critical lessons that you learned from Al, like being shoulder to shoulder with him? Like, hey, like, here's how what do you remember that was formative for you?
Right. So I still am in touch with him. He's retired down in Arizona. He would tell me often, okay, people can buy steel anywhere. Your steel is the same as everybody else's steel. It's steel. So what are they buying? They're buying service. And so the relationship is everything. You do what you said you were going to do. And everybody who knows Al knew that if he said he's going to get the steel there on time or by a certain date, it would be, and it would fit. So that's the most important thing, that, in construction, you've got to be able to stand by your word. And sadly, many people do not, or they try and cut corners, and it hurts them or hurts their relationship, and they never will do another job for that customer again. ST Fabrication really, and Jabez Coatings and Construction, we really pride ourselves on repeat business. I have at least 50, 60 requests every week that come in for, hey, bid this job, give us steel numbers. And we just ignore 90% of them. I don't have time to deal with them. The estimating team and our team will respond to our repeat customers and people that we feel like, okay, there's a compelling reason for me to spend the next 2 weeks estimating this job and give them a number, and not the other 90 opportunities that we may have had, because it's not just me getting requests. Yep. I have 2 or 3 other people estimating, and they're getting similar requests. So it's we've been very fortunate that way.
So I guess double clicking on the client piece, because it sounds like there are qualities and characteristics that make it, a good customer. Because like you were saying, like Al was saying, anybody can buy a steel from you, and I'm sure, like you mentioned, a lot of people come to you to try to work with you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the job or get the project and all that sort of stuff. So I'm curious for you, what qualities do you feel like from a metal fabrication company standpoint makes like what's a good client or customer for you?
One that pays their bills. Yeah, that's if there's a challenge for in construction that I think is probably universal, it's getting paid. In general, subcontractors like ST Fabrication, we're working for general contractors, right? A general contractor will win a large job, then they got to go out and buy individual disciplines scope of work. So they'll come to a steel fabricator and try and get that scope of work bought out. So they have lots of choices, right? You can go to McDonald's, you can go to Burger King, you can go to Dick's, or you can go to El Gaucho's, right? There's a difference. They all sell you a burger.
Yep.
There's a difference in price. There's a difference in quality. So we're certainly not the cheapest. So our strategy has always been to go after jobs that typically are ugly, messy, complicated, what everybody else doesn't want to do. And we did that partly because the customers who had those kinds of projects already knew Al. And they knew if they called him, they could solve this problem. And so I kind of inherited that. And we have continued to do those kinds of jobs. Big part of our market over the last decade has been Sound Transit. So Sound Transit is a very interesting customer. They got billions of dollars that they're spending, billions. And I won't go into whether or not it's well spent or not, but I will tell you that the money is there. And the projects are there. But the challenge is that it's very, very bureaucratic. It may take you sometimes years to get paid. Not weeks, years.
Wow.
It's just I know the executive team there at Sound Transit. It's not personal. This is just the nature of this behemoth that they're running. And there has to be checks and balances because it's taxpayer dollars going to fund these projects. So the taxpayer needs to be assured of pricing and of quality and of 100 different things. So Sound Transit has to hire 100 different people to check 100 different things. And 90 of those 100 people know nothing about construction. And so it becomes just a quagmire of bureaucracy. So it's not unlike working for the federal government. But in the case of Sound Transit, it's worse because I do a lot of work with the federal government.
So I'm curious, and keep in mind, if you don't want to answer this and you be like, hey, let's not go down this path, totally cool. But I'll set it up and if you answer, you answer. If not, then we can cut it and continue from there. But so years ago, there was a I saw somebody showed an analysis in New York that they wanted to build like a small little like a restroom, like a public restroom, and I can't remember what they initially quoted that that restroom. It might have been for some reason, and it was it's a whole little space, but it was like maybe like $1 million or $2 million, something like that.
Yeah,
and it was supposed to be done within I don't know, a matter of a year or something like that, maybe less. Anyways, it was like 3, 4, 5 years, and it ballooned up to like 20 million, I think is what I heard at the end of that time. So I'm just like you mentioned, saying how money is allocated, especially to it being taxpayer. I'm curious to see your thoughts on like, how you see, especially too from a, not focus on any specific client, but just the state of just public works as a whole.
well, I'll give you a good example. So there's a design build pursuits and design bid build pursuits. There's lots of opinions on which methodology is better. Sound Transit has used both, and I've worked on contracts that have gone both ways. And when they're design build, the general contractor is the one that is saying to Sound Transit, I will build this entire project for this fixed price, and we're going to design it kind of as we go. And the hope the general contractor has is that as he develops his design, his costs are going to get cheaper, even though he's given a lump sum price to Sound Transit. So if it was $1 million and he gets it done for $700,000, he gets to put an extra $300 in his pocket, right? So that's the theory of design build. But there could be unforeseen circumstances. There could be things that you don't know about. A classic example is the SR 99 tunnel that Tudor Perini was hired to do at the Seattle waterfront. So the world's largest diameter tunnel underground connecting 2 points in Seattle. What could go wrong? Well, it did go wrong. They drilled for a while and they ran into something. And so now whose fault is that? And it goes through the courts and this and that. I think Tudor Perini ended up losing on that one. But usually the general contractor will win, or that's what they're betting on, that they're going to win. So another project just happened here in Federal Way, and I was on this project. Kiewit did the F200 Sound Transit link station. So that is at Kent Des Moines, at Star Lake, and at 320th. And we did Kent Des Moines and the Star Lake project. On bid day, I think there were 3 responsive bidders. Kiewit, I think it was Walsh, and I think it was Lease Crutcher Lewis. I think that's correct. Kiewit was not the low bidder. They were at $1.258 billion. I think I have that right. $1.2 billion. Somebody else was a little higher. Somebody else was a little lower. But they ended up getting the award because it's not lowest price on these design build pursuits. It's best value. At least on that one it was. So they got it. So that whole project is now done. I think we bid it originally in 2018. What do you think the price point is for the $1.258 billion Kiewit package? Guess.
like at the very end?
Yeah, what they actually end up getting paid by Sound Transit.
Knowing what I know, $2 billion?
You're $1 billion short.
3.
It's over $3 billion. So this is a home run for this design build project for Kiewit. Home run, right? So now I'm working for these kinds of general contractors, guys that are doing some of the biggest and best projects in the world. So you asked earlier, what's a good customer? Well, somebody that's got deep pockets, who can actually pay you. Because sometimes when I've worked with some of these general contractors, they are very sympathetic that we, as a small business, as their supplier who's already spent all the money paying our payroll, spent all the money paying our bills to our steel vendors and detailers and, sandblast supplier, everything that goes into doing the job. We had to pay our bills. So they recognize that. So sometimes they'll pay us long before they get paid. That's a good customer. Someone who understands, okay, we don't have as deep a pockets as Kiewit or as Walsh or as, Absher, whoever the general contractor is. And they'll sometimes make accommodations to help with cash flow. And that's been very, very useful, having good trade partners going both ways.
So obviously you mentioned that from, and I want to be very cautious how we approach this conversation, but as a business owner, especially too, like you mentioned, deep pockets, pays on time, all that sort of stuff, and likely is a good partner throughout the process of the project. But I'm curious, if you were to put your, take your business hat off and just more as just an American citizen, a tax-paying American citizen, you having like firsthand view on just maybe how resources, funds, things like that are allocated. What are your thoughts from that perspective?
Well, it's a challenge because the taxpayer at the end of the day is the one that's paying for all of this. So military projects, same sort of thing. Military Department of Defense spending at Fort Lewis or Bangor or Puget Sound Naval Shipyard or hundreds of military installations around the country and the world, every one of those projects get paid for with tax dollars. Everything the government bills is with a tax dollar. Those tax dollars need accountability, or presumably we as a taxpayer want accountability. But it's such a huge, huge, monstrous thing that nobody can get their hands around. So the consequences, you have all these lunatic studies that get done, and you hear reports. You remember when Doge was in the news making all these cuts. We don't care about, do crickets get drunk on vodka or not, or whatever, some strange study being done. But that's tax dollars going for that. If they can't keep track of that, do you think they can keep track of cost overruns on a road or a highway that we actually need? We need the road.
Yeah.
We don't care about the crickets. We need the road. So there's a lot of stuff that just gets done, and it's like trying to turn a ferry boat around. You can't step on the brakes and stop in 100 yards.
Yep.
And the government's the same way. And so some of these big projects, they're exactly the same way. Sound Transit is a light rail system. And I really believe in the project because we want to network the city. Public transportation is very useful for connecting the city. I get it. But it's the most expensive construction project for a rail system per linear foot, I think, that's ever been devised on the planet. Well, you think about the BART system in California. Billions wasted. They haven't connected anything. So at least here in Seattle, we've now connected from Linwood to Federal Way.
Yep.
That's an amazing accomplishment. The reality is that in connecting that, there's a lot of money that gets spent, a lot of municipalities that line goes through. So every single city, every single municipality, their little mayors or council people at a design review will have something to say about what's built in their neighborhood. So there's no commonality between any Sound Transit stations, not really, because what Linwood wants is different than what Kent wants. And the artwork and the green screens that are put up on the Redmond facility is different than Bellevue. I mean, they're all different. So since they're all different, unique designs, all different general contractors winning these jobs. It's not just one. They all get executed a little bit differently, and then cost overruns, which there are, take an inordinate amount of time to vet, review, approve, sometimes get funded, back and forth. It's a long process.
So do you think, you kind of like talking about, just the overall process of maybe potentially why it, ends up ballooning the cost. Do you think that this is just something we just have to accept, hey, that's just the way it is? Or do you think there are certain levers or mechanisms that we could, like a lever that we could pull that, hey, this would cause more efficiency here, that would allow for overruns to not take place? Maybe not completely, but just lessen it.
Well, this is part of the reason why personally I'm in favor of the design build approach, because now you're putting the design onus on the general contractor. They designed it, they have to build it. Yep. When Sound Transit or on the government side, Army Corps of Engineers or NAVFAC is in charge of the design, sometimes they have a design that's really good and everything goes well. But many times, by the time that design is completed, the Navy starts a design project on a big dry dock system in Bremerton. It takes them a year, 2 years to come up with the design, the RFP, and they have to come up with a budget, the engineer's estimate. By the time they get that completed and the RFP hits the street for the general contractors to bid it, that engineer's estimate is already off by 20 or 30% or more. Why? Because labor's gone up, oil went up, or the price of, there was a tariff that was put in place, and something has affected costs. Yep. That the original design team who worked for the government didn't even know about at the time, or they didn't anticipate it properly. So then the bids come in, and all the bids are 10, 20, 40% more. There's no funding for it. So now they got to go back and redesign it. When they go and redesign it, some of the GCs say their price went up, others say their price went down, and it just becomes a convoluted mess. And then if they really were trying to shop the number and cut their price, one general contractor may have done that. But they did so knowing they're going to find something wrong with the design, come back later and take full advantage of the error in the Navy's design or in the Army Corps' design, and then charge them for it to fix their error. And the change order costs, the hope is that they'll make up for it on that. Doesn't always work that way. It did not work out that way for Tudor Perini on SR 99. But clearly it must have worked out pretty well for Kiewit on the F200 project.
You used this word when you were with your just previous response. I'm curious, tariffs is a big topic. And I know steel was impacted, right? With tariffs. Okay, so I'm curious. Yeah, what's the impact? Like, how are you viewing all that for your business specifically?
So the tariffs, I don't believe, hurt our business at all. I think they actually helped our business. Most of the work that we do is public works or federal government, Department of Defense, military, Navy, FAA. All these jobs, all these customers are governed by tax dollars has a way of funding all of it or part of it. Because that's the case, Congress, has passed a law some time ago, the Buy America Act or the Buy American Act, two different acts, but they basically say that, look, you need to use domestically sourced materials. On one of those acts, you could go with friendly nations. So if you bought from Mexico or Canada, it was okay for some Department of Defense jobs, but not for Sound Transit. not for anything that comes in through the Department of Transportation or governed by the Federal Highway Administration. The Federal Highway Administration has dollars that come towards Sound Transit, and their rules are very, very strict. It's 100% domestic materials. So I'm already buying material that is melted, manufactured, and produced in the United States. So I don't care if they put 500% tariff on China. I'm actually for that, because Chinese steel is undermining American steel. It's undermining American jobs. So for most small businesses in our arena, I think tariffs are very favorable. Now, did that cause steel prices to go up? Yes, it did. Steel prices, when the tariffs were first announced, initially went up a little bit. But it could be argued that those prices are going to go up one way or the other, because the economy is doing better, not worse, despite what might be said on the news. Okay, the reality is that there are more people working today than has ever been in the history of the country. There are more people with cell phones around the globe. Third world countries, they have cell phones. I mean, it's an amazing time that we're living in on planet Earth. The level of prosperity, the level of money coming to everyday people around the globe is like no other time in human history, right? You've got people in backwoods tribes in Africa, all over India, throughout the islands in Indonesia. They have cell phones. They have Amazon. Okay, so it's hard to say that we're not doing better. Now, are there pockets where it's really tough? Absolutely. But the opportunities in this country for people who are willing to work are phenomenal. That's why they're coming from every country under the sun to get here. Why? To get the same opportunities that I've been able to experience. Yeah. It's amazing what's here.
That's awesome.
Even though there are all kinds of crazy things that are done with taxpayer dollars and money, and it's convoluted, and it's a fight to get paid. It is. Yeah. All that stuff is true.
So going back to like the story piece, like specifically you mentioning, it sounded like when you first acquired the business, it was more private sort of client type of clients, and then eventually probably through that program that you're part of, that opened you up to the federal, more public work type of approach. So I'm curious, what's the ratio now between like public and private, and what was the evolution like? And maybe you could talk about that small business program and how that got you exposed as well.
Yeah. So honestly, when we were looking to buy the business, and I'm just being very transparent. I never even knew there was such a thing as small disadvantaged business or any of these programs.
Yeah, all the designations.
All the designations that we have. But my business partner, Eric, is Caucasian. I think he's Irish American. And I'm ethnically from India. My parents were born in India, immigrated here. And so the old owner, Sandy Todd, first time she met us and we took a tour of the shop we were considering buying, she took one look at us and saw that, okay, we're a white guy and a dark-skinned guy from India. He goes, you should set your company up as a minority business. We're a minority business. I'm a woman-owned business. I never even considered such a thing, and I thought, well, sure, we can do that, because we hadn't bought the business yet. So when we bought the business, I was 51% owner, and Eric's 49% owner. So we set it up right at the beginning. And so when she mentioned this, I said, okay, what's that all about? She said, well, go check with the OMWBE, the Office of Women and Minority Business Enterprise. That's how we applied. And so that's what I did. I just started making phone calls.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Okay.
First week. I think I got certified as an MBE first in 2003. So we bought it in 2002, I think 2003. I think that's right. I couldn't get certified as a DBE for a number of years, and I can talk more about that later. But I got certified as an MBE really because the old owner, Sandy Todd, told me, hey, this will help you out. Well, I did it, and it didn't do anything because I didn't really know what to do with it. We weren't bidding jobs at that time where it would really matter. But I kept hearing about different projects available in the military, and we started bidding some of those because we had some relationships with contractors in Alaska, and those were military jobs. So I went ahead and said, okay, let me see what it takes to get certified as a DBE. And so MBE with the state is Minority Business Enterprise. DBE is with the state and the federal, and it's kind of governed with the Department of Transportation. It's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise.
And it's both. You said federal and state.
Yeah,
okay.
And it's a little different system, and they have different rules. And so, and then the SBA, which is through the Small Business Administration on the Fed side, they have their own rules. So I started going to different meetings and seminars and open houses with the SBA, anything that the OMWBE had, and began to get educated in what these different venues were for contracting dollars that eventually funneled down through to the general contractors. By 2004 or 5, I think we had started a couple other construction-oriented companies. We had a railing shop separated because I wanted to focus on some of the Miss Metals architectural work and do some install. And one of the employees and the business associate that was friends with him, 4 of us tried to do that. Well, when I went to go be a DBE, their rules are you can only have one business. So I had to then shut down these other businesses that I had started, not realizing it was hurting me in my DBE application.
Wow.
Then I got turned down the next time I applied because I didn't realize you had to have a profitable business. So with the MBE, you can apply for it, and if your business isn't making money, they'll still certify you. But in the DBE, you got to show that you actually made money and paid taxes for 2 years running. So we were in the startup phase those first few years. I had, business losses. Well, that precluded me from applying for a DBE. So it took a number of years. So by 2008, thereabouts, I think we finally got certified as a DBE, 2008, 2009. And then at the same time, we had applied to become an 8A contractor with the Small Business Administration. So by 2008 or 9, thereabouts, we had the MBE, the DBE, the 8A designation, which gave us the SBSDB, Small Disadvantaged Business with the federal government. We also went and got the SCS with King County, which is small contractor supplier, something like that. Anyway, it's an alphabet soup of all this stuff. And began to learn how to bid these jobs and work with the general contractors that needed to get a certain amount of participation from DBEs or MBEs. The first job that I bid on purpose as a DBE really was in, I think, 2008. It was a sound transit job, and I went after that, and we were successful and won that with Turner Construction. And that was it was a steep learning curve. But we were successful with it. The first 6 months that I was on that job, all my staff came and told me, if you bid another one of these things, we quit. We won't do them. It was that challenging. After about a year and a half, the same two guys came to me and said, hey, we think we figured this thing out. We can make money on this. Let's keep bidding these. So we did.
Quick question for the designation. So I'm aware of those different designations that you have. So my question is sort of selfish, but also too, I'm just curious your thoughts on this. So as you know, I own my own business, and I'm a minority as well. I'm Hispanic, a Latino background, and I actually haven't gone for any of these designations mainly, and this could be pride, ego, arrogance, whatever. It's like, okay, I want to prove that I could do this without, any sort of additional assistance and help. And so I'm curious for you, like specifically when it comes to the construction standpoint, is there any reason why somebody, if they can get one of these designations, like you should absolutely do it? I'm just curious because I know that there obviously are businesses out there who don't have these designations as well and do well as well. So I'm curious how you would, if a contractor were to ask you, like we're in your shoes, it's like, hey, like I could potentially apply for this. Would you advise them to do this? Like, I guess, like, is there any reason not to do it?
So there's two sides to every coin, right? If you're going to go down the path of contracting with the federal government or entities who are working for the federal government or public works, it takes a little bit more in overhead costs to do the paperwork required to execute a contract. Okay, because there's scrutiny, because there are tax dollars being spent, and so there's oversight and scrutiny on every contract that goes out, and where do the dollars go to?
Yep.
The consequence for the supplier or the subcontractor is there are more pieces of paper that I have to produce to prove to you what was done with the dollars and how it was spent and all of that. So it takes more overhead to run those kinds of jobs. I'll give you an example. There was a $30 million job thereabouts that I pursued under Jabez Construction in a joint venture with Absher. $30 million. It was up at Whidbey Island, not a large building, but it had all these security requirements, super secret SCIF facilities inside the larger building and office spaces. That it's an expensive building to build. But just how expensive? Well, the requirements from the government required on the RFP that you have a project manager assigned. There needs to be a project executive. There needs to be a structural observer with a PE license with 5 years of experience of working on projects of $25 million or more.
Wow.
There needs to be a SSHO, a safety and health officer. There needs to be a QA person with similar experience as a structural engineer, a separate QA person for the MEP scopes of work. By the time there's to be an assistant superintendent, 14 full-time staff required by the RFP for 580 days on a $30 million job. Wow. That same $30 million job could get executed in the private sector with 3 or 4 people.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is, that's 3 or 4 people compared to, you said 14?
Yeah. So that's the nature of, we have checks and balances for taxpayer dollars spent. We're building a super secret safe building on a military base at Whidbey Island Air Station. Here's the budget. But you have to have all these people to make sure it's right. So, needless to say, that's why almost in every instance, there's cost overruns. Or you can't do it for the budgeted, allotted amount that the engineer's estimate from the government thought it would take. So there's a bit of a game that is played by all parties.
Yeah.
The general contractor plays it. The subs in turn are playing it with the general contractor, understanding what their rules are of engagement with their customer, which is the Navy or the Army. Mm-hmm. The Army plays it. The Navy plays it. They know, okay, I need to get this, this, and this done, and I can't make the general contractor do something that's not written on paper. So there's horse trading that goes back and forth, right? Because at the end of the day, contracts and specs are what govern all of these projects. So what's in the contract? So now my project managers that are running these jobs are having to actually put on their legal hat. They're really functioning more as a paralegal, parsing through contract language on, do I have a right to get paid? Did I check all the boxes to get paid? Does the government owe me interest because they were late? There's legal structure that they're not looking at how tall the column is or there's a beam fit. They're looking to see, did I put my notice provision within 5 days of a change being announced, so I'm protecting my right to actually claim extra money because I made the 5-day cutoff window on giving them notice, hey, your design changed. I got that design change on February 12th, and by February 15th, I sent you a notice. Yes, I acknowledge your design change. There might be a commercial impact. Now the clock is ticking. I have 14 days to price it. And I go ahead and price it. If I came in at day 17, Sound Transit can and would say, you're late on your notice provisions, no merit, you don't get paid. That was a paperwork thing. I did the work. They're not disputing that I did the work. They're not disputing the design change was there. I missed the notice provisions. So that means I need to have a clerk on staff ready to send out the notice provisions on time. Those are the kinds of games that are played. So if you have a general contractor who's going to just stick it to the subs, first thing they do, oh, you missed the notice provisions, no merit. Even though they may have got their notice provision in and they're going to get paid, you're not. You missed it. Because there's a legal reason they can say, you failed to do this part of the contract. And they're not wrong. Is it fair? Well, it's not about fairness sometimes. It's what does the contract say? Because we're not going to talk about what's fair. You want to know what's legal and right. Yeah. Why? You're representing the taxpayer dollars. Yeah. Joe taxpayer does not want you to pay somebody because you feel sorry for them because they missed their 5-day notice window. But if you're a sole proprietor or a team of 3 or 4, you might miss those notice windows. Mm-hmm. There's not enough time in the day. Or you don't have enough staff to keep up with the paperwork. So there are pros and cons of going down the public sector. More bureaucracy, more paperwork, more things to make sure that you have your I's dotted and your T's crossed.
Man. I think it's absolutely brilliant. You say, yeah, my PM supposed to be a PM is now a paralegal.
Yes.
That's great like copywriting. I feel like that could be a whole thing in itself. But my mind, going back to it, like saying it's a relationship-based industry.
Yes.
It seems like there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of things like, hey, yes, I like Jesse, I like ST Fabrication, but the contract, like, I guess, how do you run the dynamic between the relationship and but the
So this is really what my full-time job is I manage those relationships. The general contractors that I've talked to, mentioned in the interview, they all know me. They have me on that phone call we got that I interrupt. Yep. That is a project executive at one of the world's largest construction companies on a job that's happening right now. I'm doing part of that job at the Navy. He called me personally, and I talked with him, even though I've never gone out to coffee with him, never had a meal with him, but there's trust, there's a relationship. He knows that he can come to us. He worked with my operations manager, who was at a competitor for 27 years. Well, that guy had done project after project with this company and with this individual. So there's this synergy of relationships and people and networking that really is what it takes to be successful. Besides the fact that you actually read the contract, know what it says, and can dot your I's and cross your T's. Yeah.
So how do you balance, or how do you approach compromise? Like, is there any sort of, like, especially too, knowing that you do have those relationships, is like, how do you, like, if something is missed for whatever reason, is there grace? Is that such a thing? Or is it just, hey, sorry, Jesse, that's it?
No, it'd be naive to say that if you make a mistake, it won't cost you. It will cost. I mean, there are people going out of business every single day. I have fabricators and steel professionals in Washington and Oregon. Last week I met with one of the largest steel distributors that sells to myself and all of our competitors. And he's telling me story after story of guys going out of business, 47 years, stalwart in the industry, going out of business. Sometimes jobs don't go well, and when they don't go well, there's a cost to it, and that cost can oftentimes be a business that didn't survive. You know, when COVID hit, how many restaurants went out of business?
A lot.
A lot of them went out of business. Okay, we never shut down for a single day. I just didn't participate. Everybody kept working. Our projects kept right on going because it's Department of Defense, it was education, public transportation, so we kept right on working. But many companies got really, really hurt, and I recognize that. Again, federal government advantage is they tend to not run out of money. They tend to pay their bills. They might have a temporary shutdown, then everybody gets paid eventually. So there is a high likelihood of eventually getting paid when you're working for the federal government. If you're working for a hotel developer who's scrapping together $20 million to build this hotel, and it's a risk for him, at the end of the project, if he's run out of money, you're not getting paid. He has no more money to give you, you know, and anyway, that's pros and cons.
Yeah, so going back to, you mentioned like Turner Construction was one of the first contractors, like doing the sound transit.
And
project.
we just finished the Seattle Aquarium with them.
Oh, with them. Okay, great. So I'm curious, like, knowing that was a significant, you know, I'm sure partnership as well as like type of project. Do you remember back then what some of the things that you remember learning, some of the lessons you're like, oh, like that were really helpful to kind of like set the rest up as you continue to expand into the public sector?
Well, I mentioned that story about notice provisions. That's very real to me because I missed notice provisions on an early contract. So I understand it. You know, it's not all home runs, right? Sometimes you get thrown out at the plate. Sometimes it's a double or a single, but, you know, you take what you can, and hopefully over the course of time, you have enough winners compared to losers. We've been really very, very fortunate over 22, 23 years now that not to have a slew of bad customers. We have really good customers. We've been paid, I think, across the board on every single project. You know, maybe there's 2 or 3 that we didn't do as well on, but eventually we get paid.
So you alluded to like how COVID was. You mentioned you just continued along how that was. Obviously, that kind of threw the world into a whole spiral. I'm curious, like because you mentioned 2008 for that project, and that's around the recession. I'm curious, what was the recession like for ST Fabrication during that time?
So that was right in the middle of all the ramp up of Jabez construction, and we had some government projects already in hand. The recession took a little longer to impact us.
Okay.
Because it's trickle down economics really works, but the impact to ST Fabrication was right around the time we won that first large public works job with Sound Transit. We realized that this is where construction dollars were going to be spent, so we really started focusing on bidding the public works stuff right when that recession hit, because it was residential housing and private building that really got impacted. Mm-hmm. Now, there was supposed to be a bunch of shovel-ready projects that were promised by the sitting president at the time. Those never happened. Mm-hmm. But what did happen was some of these state-funded public works stuff. Sound Transit just kept right on going. So there wasn't a lot of private development. Well, that's the same thing happening right now. When the beginning of the year, interest rates weren't getting cut, and it really hurt the private sector. Housing got hurt. All the new towers that were scheduled to be built, all of a sudden no funding because the interest rates are high. So those things got shut down. You know what didn't get shut down? The military projects, the Sound Transit and other types of transportation projects, airports. I mean, we were on the Seattle SeaTac Airport, Concourse C build out. That same kind of construction is happening at every airport around the country. All the airports are expanding. Why are the airports expanding? Because air travel is expanding. Why is air travel expanding? Because people have money and they're going places. How can you have airports expanding if the economy is not good? It is good. It's been like gangbusters for the last 30 years, really. Maybe slight downturns, slight.
Yeah.
You know, anybody who held on to their stocks when the dot-com bomb happened is really happy right now. Everyone that sold in 2002 is very sad.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, that's great. So Jesse, I know that you're, is it right that you're on the board for ASA, right?
Yeah, I'm on the advisory board for the American Subcontractors Association. That's correct.
Yeah, so I'm curious. I know that it is here. The chapter here is only a few years old. I'm curious, like, what was your draw? Because I have an understanding, obviously, being a part of different meetings and things like that, like functions that have happened for ASA. But in your own experience, being a subcontractor on certain projects, like, what was the compelling reason for you to join and not obviously be on a board for ASA?
Well, it's all about relationships. So, you know, I know the value of networking, and so I've been networking at the general contractors' offerings to network, for the best way of putting it. So each general contractor periodically, sometimes once a year, sometimes once a quarter, or sometimes it's project specific, will have these networking outreaches to, number one, showcase their company, perhaps highlight a job, and they're really trying to solicit participation from subcontractors. And oftentimes they go out of their way to say, hey, we have a big demand for small business participation on these contracts. So if you're a MBE, a DBE, a WIMBE, whatever, please bid this job, and here's why. So during those networking events is where I really began to meet different general contractors, and I'd see an email, I'd say accept the invite, and I'd show up. You know, I enjoyed that, and it really has helped build our business. The relationships and the contracts. Again, that call we just had, it's from those kinds of events, and so when the ASA was first suggested to me, and I realized, okay, here's a networking opportunity that's not from the general contractor's perspective, but from my perspective, from a subcontractor, I instantly realized, okay, this is good. There's a need for this. And so, yeah, I jumped on board with that. And it's interesting because the network there, we're often on the same projects. So it's very convenient to compare notes, compare experiences with the various general contractors. Who's a problem child? Who's not? Who pays their bills? What? They settled that for that much with you? Well, here's what they did with me, right? This enables us to talk shop without fear of repercussion. And that's, I think, a real value for the ASA. And then just learning experiences. I mean, one of our board members is attorney with Miller Nash, Jim Yan. Very, very informative and helping subcontractors get educated, make their PMs better paralegals, right? I got introduced to Pellis AI, a software company that's using AI to help construction professionals. Really a very valuable tool, helps do that paralegal work through AI technology. So, I would have never known about that, or likely not known about it as quickly, I guess, without my networking at ASA. But the CEO of Pellis AI was able to come in and show us, the subcontractors, how the technology works, how their platform works, what it could do for us. So, yeah, the networking gives you the ability to realize you're not alone in this, and that there are lessons to be learned from other people who have made those mistakes, so you don't have to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and even you mentioning some of the contractual, like I know contracts is a big topic for a lot of subcontractors, and it's interesting. One of the I was talking to an executive a few months ago, and he had mentioned he was scratching his head. I'm curious your thoughts on this, because I feel like ASA does also. I was there for one of their think tank days, I think last year, and I was just a fly on the wall. I'm like here listening to hear what they talk about. I'm like, man, there's a lot of pain for sure, but then there's a lot of lessons and a lot, hey, here's what I'm doing here and all sort of stuff. But one of the things I heard from a subcontractor talking about the GCs is around schedule.
Yes.
And what this executive was telling me is like, hey, I'm scratching my head because I thought the GC is the one that's supposed to be running the schedule, not the subs amongst themselves.
Right.
And so I'm just curious whether it's that topic, or are there any other topics that as a subcontractor that you face and you're like, man, like this is what maybe communities like ASA are looking to solve or help be collaborative and trying to find solutions for?
Well, at the end of the day, construction really depends on good communication. So the networking opportunities are basically on-the-job training for how to have good communication, right? This is how you write a notice letter. This is how you prepare your bid. This is how we approached general contractor to get a change order implemented. There's so many varied experiences in construction. It's not one size fits all. But over the course of years, you find some common problems, some common challenges, and being able to hear the stories of how different subs have encountered the same problems that you've encountered, but here's how they approached it. You learn there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's interesting. A few years ago, I heard, and I'm ignorant on this specific topic, but I know that like I've seen contractors, especially from Texas, look to Washington and specifically around the whole retainage topic. Could you give me, like I said, I'm ignorant to this. What happened here from I don't know if it's legislation or something happened specifically around retainage, and how has that impact been since?
Well, retainage is kind of a tough thing, and I am not the expert on it. So, but as I understand, some states charge higher retention than others, and we've had many contracts come to us and they wanted to say, hey, 10% retention. And our attorney, and again, we had a really good attorney as part of our team for many years, He recently passed. It was a great loss, but he said, well, no, Washington state law doesn't allow for more than 5% retention, particularly on these kinds of projects. So just getting educated as to what the law is important, and then pushing back. One of the things that we have done on every subcontract, that somebody you win a job as a subcontractor, oh, you're excited, yay, yay, yay. And we made that mistake a few times and went ahead and signed the contract and start doing it, and then find out, oh, well, we're screwed in paragraph 14 BC, and I can't claim for those extra charges because they said, I signed a contract that says I'm not entitled to them. So now our process is, okay, you win the award? Maybe. Let's take a look at the contract. Let's go through it. Let me redline it. Let me run it through my attorney and PM. And so you have to be willing to horse trade back and forth on the terms of each general contractor's specific contract, because they all have their own contracts, and they will be at varying levels of willingness to change things. Something that I heard over and over, well, it's our our legal won't let us. We're a multi-billion-dollar company. We can't change the contract. Okay, I agree, you can't. But you can add an addendum, and this addendum has all of my exclusions, or all the things that I'm saying, yeah, here's your contract, but there's also this addendum, and in that addendum says, well, I'm going to get paid if I do extra work. Something. That's the point, is that not all contracts or awards are necessarily ones you want to sign.
And have you walked away?
Yes. Yep. You have to be willing to do that. And that's a really tough thing for most subcontractors to do. Say no to somebody who's willing to says they're willing to give you money. But how you get the money, how it's distributed to you, when it's distributed to you, is kind of important. Because most of us small businesses really have one common problem. That's cash flow. You're spending money. When does it come back in? If there's a delay in when it comes back in, and then you win another job, and now you're spending more money, then you get another job. So most small businesses depend on lines of credit or a whole bunch of cash that they've saved up to run their business on. And if you are growing, you'll eventually run out of cash.
And it's tough because, at least from my perspective, it seems like sometimes the subs are the ones left holding the bag.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, if you were to go back, not to write off everything you've built here at ST Fabrication, would you be a GC, knowing what you've experienced as a subcontractor? Would you rather be a GC over sub, or sub? Like, are you happy with where you're at? I'm curious your thoughts now, having the experience of 20 years plus.
Yeah, so we did the GC thing from 2008 to 2018. I still have several GC contracts ongoing through the joint venture, but we kind of downsized the GC subdivision. There's really just myself and PX that would be running the job, but we aren't actively pursuing additional general contractor type work. And the reason for that is, after having done it for about a decade, we realized, okay, long-term growth for a GC is all about building up the volume, and you're working on smaller percentages. With the fabrication work and the coatings work, we already had this facility. And manufacturing, coating, it's capital intensive. You need large pieces of equipment. You need a certain amount of square footage of shop space, and you need facilities, and the facilities cost money, and You have to repair the equipment, so you need staff who knows how to repair the equipment, But we figured that our collective experience between the PMs, our staff, and the fabrication shop, the manufacturing personnel, the bulk of our experience was in fabrication.
Mm-hmm.
It's best to grow what we're good at
Yep.
rather than try to grow something that we didn't feel we were as good at.
Which is really interesting. I mean, I've talked to different executives, and I've seen different contractors as well. There's one specifically. I was talking to him, and they have, they kind of spread themselves out. They do a lot of things, and they're like, man, they're scratching their head like, how am I like? I feel like I'm like, scraping by, trying to make this business work. I have so many things that are going on. And then I look at a masonry company that's like over $100 million, and that's all they do. They just focus on doing that really well. And so the reality is like going to what it sounds like your line of reasoning is like, hey, we're really good at this. Let's just continue to grow this business unit. Now it sounds like there are adjacent like things like coatings, which makes sense because you guys are fabricating the steel. So hey, you guys also probably do the application of the coatings on that, and so that makes sense because it just enhances what you're already really good at. And so, but it's interesting because I'm sure you've probably seen it where some construction owners are like, oh yeah, we could do that, or we could do that, and then all of a sudden they're just so diversified where it's like jack of all trades, master of none.
Right. Yep. And again, it's about how much money you want to invest into that additional business line or resource. Okay. In the area of the coatings, I had a job that was coming online, actually the federal way job, F200, and it had the sophisticated paint system on the steel portion that we were doing. We could do basic prime painting with our facility the way we had it. But to do the sophisticated coating, I would have to send it out to other paint houses. There was 3 or 4 different painting companies that were well known back in 2018. 2 out of 3 of them are no longer in business, and we were having trouble with one then. So we thought, maybe we should build our own capacity and get permitted with the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency and Department of Ecology for being able to do these other sophisticated types of coatings that we weren't currently allowed to do. So we made a business decision to do that. We spent almost $1 million in building out our paint facility. But we did that knowing I had $1 million of paint I was going to sub out anyway. So that job kind of had it in the budget. I was going to spend that money on paint anyway. So we thought, let's bite the bullet and spend it on ourselves and then self-perform that work. And it ended up being a very good decision for us.
That's great. And what year was that you?
Right before COVID started. In fact, year 1 of COVID was building out the paint booths. So I said that we kept working. But how we kept working wasn't always on customer stuff because some of our customers' projects were slowed. They were delayed. I didn't lose the contracts.
Yep.
I didn't want to lay off employees.
Yep.
I knew that eventually those contracts would get executed, so I needed the staff there for when they did resume.
Yep.
So we made a business decision to keep people working, and when the PPP came about, it was really a lifesaver for our business. So I kept everybody working, but I had them working on building out our own paint booths and building that facility. And so the PPP, every single penny of it went to infrastructure in our own facility and keeping the guys working. So we didn't lay anybody off during that period of time. And phase 2 of the PPP, we did something similar, but built out automation in our shop.
So is that facility for the paint shop? Is that here or is that somewhere? Okay.
Yeah.
That's here.
It's
okay.
in this whole third part of the shop.
Okay, great. So, have clients experienced? I guess like the clients don't really experience anything different. Like, has there been efficiencies, things like that, as a result of now self-performing this part of the scope? For your clients?
Yeah. So the turnaround is huge. It used to be after we're done fabricating something, I'd then have to load it up on, a commercial flatbed if it was too large for our shorter flatbed, and ship it to the paint facility, have them paint it, have them ship it back to us, and then we're loading it and shipping it again, or sometimes they could ship it right to the customer. But there's additional trucking plus the cost of paying them to paint.
Yep.
So that whole lead time thing has disappeared. We're now painting it in-house. So our turnaround is much faster. Plus we're capturing the profit that the painter would have captured.
That's great. So this next series of questions, I want to ask it mainly through the context of like, if somebody, like let's say, you obviously you have your experience now as a business owner. If somebody came to you, if a young guy or younger individual came to you and just said, hey, Jesse, I have a few questions on business and construction. And their first question was, should I buy a construction business or should I acquire a construction business? What would you say to that question?
Acquire one or buy one?
Sorry, acquire one or build one. Sorry.
Well, it really depends on the appetite for risk, right? If you're going to buy one, that means you're risking a lot of things. You're risking your capital investment, first of all. But two, you're risking that whatever the other entity that you're buying is representing to you is actually true, that they actually have something to sell. It's tricky with the construction company. With the manufacturing company that I bought, it's a little different because there were hard assets that I was buying. I was actually buying equipment. I was buying employees. So if you can verify all of those things of what you're buying, you're saving the headache of having to build it all from scratch.
Yep.
Okay. I'll give you an example. When I bought the company, there were several things I had no idea what it was that I bought. But one of the things that I bought on the asset ledger, it's called Blue Sky. It's not really worth anything other than what everybody says it's worth. Okay, the actual equipment, the hard assets, they may have paid $500,000 or $1 million for it, but after depreciation and write-downs, and it's now 20 years old, it's only worth 80 grand. If you sold it at an auction, you might get 80 grand for it. So what we paid is the auction value. So, but the company costs more than just those hard assets.
Yep.
What was I buying? Well, I'm buying the trade name. Everybody knew ST Fabrication. What else was I buying? Their Rolodex. They had all these relationships with people who were used to doing business with ST Fab. That turned out to actually be worth every penny I paid for it because the phone was ringing. I had customers. I had customers I could go find out, hey, what projects are you working on? And they say, oh, yeah, we got this one. And we'd bid it and we'd win the work. So, but there's one other thing that Blue Sky represented. That was my relationships with my vendors. So when I'm building, $10 million or $5 million Seattle aquarium, okay, I have to go buy like $1 million or $1.5 million of steel from the supplier. I have to pay for it before I get to start cutting it up and chopping it and welding it and putting it all together. Well, how am I going to pay for $1.5 million worth of steel if I don't have $1.5 million? Cash. Well, I have to have a line of credit with the bank. Well, what I inherited when I bought the company was lines of credit that ST Fabrication, the company, had with all of my vendors. So I had $1 million lines effectively at 3 different steel vendors on day one. And I didn't realize that. It wasn't until years later I realized, oh, I guess I actually bought something, because I know what it takes to develop a new supplier.
Yep.
I go out to develop a new supplier. They'll give me a $10,000 line. Well, I need to buy $400,000 of stainless next month. What do you mean? $10,000. Yep. So I immediately was, so if you as a buyer of another business can really determine what are you getting, and usually those lines of credit don't go to the new owner, because it's a new owner, it's a new corporation, it's a new entity.
Yep.
But Al, the old owner, had this reputation with them, and Al took my hand and put it in his hand and said, hey, this is the guy. And based on the strength of Al's relationship alone, I inherited all those lines of credit. And I'll tell you it's relationship alone because Al wasn't on paper anywhere.
Nowhere.
Still isn't to this day. There's no record he ever actually worked at ST Fabrication. He's one of these off-the-grid guys, operated on cash.
Wow.
Yet all the steel suppliers gave him millions of dollars of credit. Why? Because he did what he said he was going to do. They just trusted him. And as a consequence, they trusted me. I inherited that. That's really, really hard to do in today's world. There's no project that doesn't come with a contract. Those first 10 years, I never signed a single contract. I didn't even have purchase orders. I'd call up the steel supplier. Hey, I need 40 beams this length. Send it over. I'd get a bill. I'd pay it. We didn't have formal purchase orders. We didn't have formal contract. I did millions of dollars of work in Hawaii with one general contractor. We never had a contract between us. He called me up, sent me drawings. I'd send him a bid. He goes, okay, let's go. And we did the job. It's really only after, I'd say 2006, 2007 that we started. It's routine. Everything's under a contract. Everything's under purchase order, checks and balances. But we didn't start that way. It's all relationship.
Yeah, it was all a handshake. Like
literally a handshake. Yeah.
Wow. So the follow-up question to that, obviously, it sounds like, if you're willing to take on that risk to purchase a company, then also to know what you're buying as well, because
it's a shortcut.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to build. I mean, if you're building it from scratch, let's say you're a general contractor. Most general contractors have some self-performance capability.
Yeah.
They're not just a guy in the office subbing everything out.
Yeah.
So that means you're buying, I don't know, dump trucks, excavators, some kind of dirt moving equipment, or you're buying a bunch of tooling for your carpenter. You have to buy stuff. So when you're buying a company, that stuff's presumably already bought. There's a system in place. How good is the system? That's what you're paying for.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like in general, like it's really tough to say, hey, this is how much price these relationships are and our reputation, but there is value in that based on what you're saying, especially from Al having established all these relationships. My follow-up question then to that, knowing that this is your own experiences, does it make sense? So let's say somebody decides to purchase a company. Does it make sense to go solo or have a partner?
Great question. So I will tell you that having a partner is identical to being married, just no fringe benefits. No sex, right? At least not in this company. That's not how we go. We both have 14 grandkids each. So,
wow. Okay.
But no, there is real benefit to having a partner because number one, the load is being shared versus it all being on one head. So there is a significant amount of stress and mental wear and tear that can come from owning a business.
Yep.
Now, for most of us who decide to go this route, we actually love it. We thrive on it. That's part of the reason why we decided to go into business. But eventually that will take its toll. And over the course of years and decades, it'll take its toll. There's only so much chasing after money you can do without it wearing on you. So having someone to share that responsibility with is good.
Yeah.
Okay. Having said that, it's like a marriage. It means that there's compromise. It's not always your way. It's not always your business partner's way. So you have to give and take a little bit. But for us overall, I think it's been really, really positive. Having said that, most partnerships that I see don't work.
Because you've seen them probably in the industry.
They don't work.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with core values. The reason why business partnerships for Eric and I worked is because we went to the same church for 20-odd years together. We had the same influences, the same set of values. Our approach to business, our approach to charity was aligned. It was the same. So it made it a little easier for us to go into business together than it would have had it been, disparate strangers. I wouldn't recommend that at all.
Yeah. So it sounds like, because I was going to ask you that, is like, what does make a great partner? And it sounds like alignment on core values is probably the biggest thing, especially too if you share a similar faith tradition, because like, hey, we're big on integrity, we're big on all these specific things. Now, if you went in with somebody who you have no idea, hey, but what they've done or what they believe. Well,
it's a recipe for disaster or just getting ripped off. In the case of, it's really tough to say that I would ever recommend joining somebody else and going and buying a business together. I would never recommend somebody doing what we did. Yep. It's just the way that it worked out for us, and we were very fortunate that it worked out. But if one of my kids came to me and says, "Hey, I'm going to take a home equity line of credit out on my house, and I'm going to go buy, I'm going to just borrow $100,000. I'm going to go buy a business that I know absolutely nothing about." I'd tell them, run for the hills. What are you doing? That's the most insane idea I've ever heard of. But that's basically what we did, you know. But I think there was a bigger plan at work, and God had his hand on us for sure.
Yeah, well, and the reality is, like, business owners, entrepreneurs are built in a different way.
Yes.
And it's like, hey, like, the odds are stacked against you. Okay, cool. Well, it sounds like there's a chance. Let's go for it. Let's go figure it out. And
right, exactly. Yep.
So and I appreciate you going down this line. So, like, let's say they purchase, and let's say it sounds like the consideration for a partner is know that it's a marriage, know that if you do get a partner, knowing that most don't work, you want to make sure that you align on fundamental values and things like that. So let's say we now get to the next part of, like, hey, you mentioned you went from 1.4 to now $25 million in annual revenue. What are the two or three sort of lessons or advice you would give to the individual? And hey, here are the 2-3 things you should do in order to grow your business in this specific line of work.
Okay. So I think I've been asked this question, and Eric's been asked this question many times. I think, and we kind of used to say tongue-in-cheek, answer the phone. Especially in today's world, we've got everything happening on email and internet and plan servers and
text messages.
It is just kind of nuts. We believe in answering the phone. So all my PMs have cell phones. I've had one from the beginning, and we're available. We're accessible to our customers, and you need to be. And then following up with what you said, I think it's not any more complicated than that. You have to do what you said you were going to do. So that means when a vendor, a customer is calling you trying to find out about your delivery that's clearly not there, it's late, you don't ignore their call. You face the music head on and take your medicine and tell them what's really going on. You don't hide the truth. If something's misfabricated and it's going to take an extra 2 weeks for you to correct it, be upfront about it. You know, when we would go on site and something didn't fit right and it was our fault, we own it. We own it. We don't try and make an excuse about, well, no, we get it fixed. We take care of it. Those are all, I think, real fundamental values that you need to have. But you have to be firm as well. If you haven't been paid and they've missed the deadline, sometimes you need to be able to pound on the desk, demand that they make the contract right. You know, and, you know, no sub ever wants to do this because they're afraid of getting the customer angry. Sometimes you got to have your attorney send a letter or lien the job. And the fear that the subcontractor has is, oh, if I do that, I'll never work for them again. The big guys, the multinational, multi-billion-dollar entities, they tell me they get sued and liened on every single job. It's just a course of business. It may not have been you, but they got 30 guys working on the job. 4 of them have sued them every time. It's just part of doing business. So if you haven't been paid, you can't be afraid to say, I haven't been paid, and you're going to cripple my business if you don't pay us. You've got to be upfront and talk about the hard stuff, as well as, you know, hey, we're going to sunshine and rainbows. This steel is going to look great. Everything's going to be rosy. Well, sometimes there's bad news that needs to get dealt with as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it just goes back to your view or approach on like service is incredibly important.
Yeah, that's communicating.
Communicating, relationship building over the long haul, and especially too when things inevitably go wrong. It's like, it's like that's where you want those partners.
It's construction. It will go wrong. It will.
Yeah, that's what I realized too. You know, we're doing some construction on our home right now, and I realize construction always takes longer and costs more than what you think.
Yes, it does.
And it's interesting because we took down a wall, and then we're like, okay, this is how much it's going to cost, and all of a sudden we take down the wall, and like, oh, there's a duct right in the middle. I'm like,
oh yeah, yep, yeah.
So that's the growth side. So now I want to focus on, you know, you mentioned 6 employees to now like 70 to 80. If somebody was just starting off, hey, like, what are the things you know to be true about leadership when it comes to leading people? And then especially, too, as headcount continues to grow.
Well, one of the things that we did along the way is we employed a couple different consultants at times to kind of help us manage growth and point us in a direction to help us grow. Yeah. And something that one of the early consultants told me early on was, you and Eric you're going to wear yourself out, because in the early years, you know, we were bidding, estimating, bidding, running every job ourselves. There was no other estimator. There was Eric. There was no other PM. There was me. So there was no purchasing department. So that means we were purchasing. I was the CTO. There was no IT department. That was me. So eventually you realize, I think with IT is when it first happened. In that first year, I think I paid myself $15 an hour to work at my own company. And I'm doing the IT work. And all of a sudden I realized there's not enough hours in the day. I need to hire somebody to help me set this server up or something. I knew enough to be dangerous, but I realized I need to actually hire somebody that knows what they're doing. Well, his bill rate's $125 an hour. And I'm making $15 an hour. And I'm thinking I can do this work, but I can't do the IT work and help Al run this job. And I realized, okay, it's more important that I'm helping Al run the job, and I hire somebody who's really good at IT and pay them what they're worth to get that done. That was a really hard lesson because I'm the guy that worked on his own cars, did my own remodel, I do everything myself. And I realized, okay, I got to delegate. I've got to find people who are better at doing this than I am. So that's precisely what we started to do, one hire at a time, is find somebody who is a better project manager. I mean, within a year or two, they said, we don't want Jesse managing any jobs because that's not my strength, you know. But I'll go hunt them down. I'll go find them. I'll go find the job, make the kill, bring it in here, then let them run it. And so, you know, neither Eric or I ever took, well, Eric took one. I took 0 accounting classes. I took all this engineering and physics and chemistry and, you know, solid dynamics and things like that. I didn't take any accounting classes. Well, for a business owner, all that really matters is accounting. Accounting matters, right?
Money in, money out.
So I had to hire an actual bookkeeper. Now, could I run QuickBooks? Yeah. But it's kind of like the IT department. I don't have time to be the accountant. I don't have time to make sure everybody's paychecks get done every other week. So I need to hire an employee to do that. So department by department, task by task, we had to hire people to do those things who could do it better than myself or Eric, and it was a better use of resources to hire them than it was to have us muddle through and not do it well. Well, that first consultant really drove that point home. Said, Eric, Jesse, you guys are trying to play basketball on the court and coach at the same time. And the consultant looked at me and said, Jesse, you are not Michael Jordan. You'll never be Michael Jordan. Go recruit Michael. Hire him. Pay him what he's worth. Get off the court and get on the sideline and coach from the sideline. Go find Shaq. Eric's not Shaq. He's taller than you. He's not Shaq. Every hour you and Eric spend working those drills and those plays on the court, it's costing you money. Shaq is better. Michael is better. And if you don't have them, go find them. So that was really fundamental for us in 2003, I think, 2003, getting that. And we took it to heart. And so we started systematically hiring one body at a time who was better than we were at that task. Yeah.
That's great. And even too, there's a really good book called The E-Myth. And it basically talks about that when you first start off your business, and it talks about doing contracts, like, well, hey, we need a CFO. It's like, well, who, like, and he's talking about within a partnership, he's like, who's got the better ability potential? Like, oh, well, I do. Okay, cool. We'll sign your name on that. It's like, okay, we need a CTO. Okay, great. We need a marketing person. We need a sales person. The reality is, it's probably, if you're a business of one, that's all you.
Yeah.
But there's a level. The thing I liked about it is there's a level of intentionality around, like, you own this right now. Now, eventually, your goal is to grow the business so you can eventually give this to somebody else.
Right.
And so my question for you is, like, let's say you do recruit the Michaels, the Shaqs, and all sort of stuff. What is the because this is what I've heard, from a lot of other leaders is some people are good at faking it.
Yes.
And
oh yeah, we went through believe me, I know.
So my question for you is, what sort of development have you, like, what sort of lessons have you learned from kind of calling BS?
Yeah, after having gone through that a couple of times, and some came through recruiters. Oh man, we had some experiences. Eric kind of came up with a little moniker that I like. Slow to hire, quick to fire. Slow to hire, quick to fire. It's kind of sounds cold and hard, but the reality is, it's not unlike that first partnership that you did. Okay, you're really vetting that partner because you're getting married to him, essentially, or her. You're getting married to that partner. Well, when you're bringing in a PX or an estimator or a key position who's going to have a great impact on the success of the business venture or not, you need to know what can they really do. And if they're not measuring up to the metric, which means you must have a metric to measure them, you need to be able to evaluate performance. And if they're not performing for what you're paying them this really good salary for, you got to get rid of them. You got to find the people. In the shop, it was fairly comical, but we would, not comical, but just the state of affairs for the trades industry. You go through about 10 different bodies to get one keeper. All kinds of guys say they can weld, and they might be able to do some kind of welding. That doesn't mean that they're a fitter welder to work in an AISC certified shop. It's different. Maybe they've worked on boats and they know how to build ferry boats. It's not the same thing as building columns and beams for a building or a bridge or a military installation. So there's certain skill sets in reading drawings and understanding what is required in the trade that is specific to your business and your market. So the people you hire need to be specific to those skill sets that you need. And if they're not, you've got to get rid of them. That's a tough thing to do.
Now, there's the other part, too, of this equation. So you have, because I've heard it from other contractors who say, hey, this guy's incredible at, like, project management, or he's incredible super, but he does not click with the team. He's like my way. And so I'm curious, how do you navigate that? Because it's like, one, it's like, okay, great. Slow to hire, quick to fire. Let's say they come in, they have the right technical experience. And it's like, hey, they know what they're doing really well. But what about the culture piece?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mentioned how Eric and I changed roles after about 3 years in. And part of that is because my ability to roll with the punches, negotiate, and navigate some of those tough conversations, it was easier for me than it was for Eric. It fit my personality.
Yeah.
So personality has a lot to do with it. My personality, I don't sit still well. So sitting down and running a job and being task-oriented and dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's is not the best use of my time. I will get distracted. There's a squirrel. I just will, right? And so figuring out what's the right role for people. I have got some employees that we had them in one role for many years and then realize it's not a fit, and you transition them to a different role. Others, it doesn't work out that way. You just have to let them go. And that is a constant tweaking. What's the right mix of your team? That's something I pay a great deal of attention to. And then everyone that I have brought on over the years, they also have that mindset. If they're not working with the team, my department heads will let me know. I'll hear about it.
Oh, you will?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, 80 every company is different. I do not know the names of every one of my employees. I just don't. That's not my strength. Now, my managers of the various departments, they know them. They know them inside and out, and they'll let me know if there's issues. But my core team, I make sure that they have my values. Otherwise, they wouldn't be part of the core team. Yep. And you can find out pretty quickly. For inside office person, it might take 6 months because anybody can look really good for a week or two.
Yep. Yeah.
But in the shop, 3 days. We'll know in 3 days, if they've got it or not. And the foreman will say, sorry, didn't work out.
Oh, and foreman can.
Oh yeah,
let them. Okay.
I'm not the one doing it. I empower
That's
my
great.
managers and my team to do that. In the early years, obviously, I
Yeah.
took care of all the hiring and firing, but no, not now.
Have you ever had like a very, how do I say have you ever been in a situation where like you knew there was a bad apple, you just didn't know who it was or where it was, like to try to identify?
Oh yeah, yes, and we have current situations like that as right now. Sometimes you can't get rid of a bad apple right now because they're in the middle of a project, and you need them. So you got to mitigate what's the effect of their poison in the company. And so that happens. But the cost of change with the current list of projects might preclude you from taking action immediately. So I got a PM who is 70% done with the job, and he's making everybody angry, and it's tussle, and the customer's calling saying, I want you to get rid of this guy because he's making miserable, and you have to say, can't do it. He knows this, it'll be catastrophic, So you have to navigate and negotiate those kinds of relationship issues. And that takes some of my time as well. And they're coming to me. Why? Because they have the relationship with me.
Yep.
But you got to stand by your people because your people aren't perfect.
Yep.
And while you want them to operate perfectly, what happens if they're only operating at 75% capacity, but they're still making the company 10% on a $2 million job? So now I have to weigh, is there 25% inefficiency costing me more than their 75% efficiency, which is making me 20%? Or what? There's a trade-off.
Yep.
What's the cost of replacing a highly placed PM or manager of a certain department or another? Well, the cost of that might be 6 months setback and loss of all the profit on that job.
Yep.
Well, can your company survive that? Maybe not. So it's not just the task.
Yep.
It's their personality too and how they work with the team. So our hope is, and I think it's borne itself out over time, each of the PMs that I've hired, each of the managers I've hired, all have the same core values, the same mindset to customer service, the same willingness to pick up the cell phone on a Saturday or a Sunday or 8 o'clock at night if I call or if the customer calls, because they have that work ethic. They're willing to do that.
Have you had to fire somebody in the middle of a project?
Let me think. No. I've had people quit in the middle of a project. And probably because they saw the writing on the wall or realized that they weren't being effective. But no, we've had have I had any terminations? Maybe one or two over the years. We've let people go, laid them off. But as far as terminating for cause, I think there's actually only been one.
Okay. But you said that people have quit,
Yeah.
So when that happens, what do you do?
Rally with the rest of the troops, shift responsibilities. I mean, we've got enough of a bench right now where we have some flexibility. I can move projects around, move people around.
That's good.
Yeah.
Man, like there's definitely a lot of wisdom, a lot of business insight, obviously, that you've developed over decades. And to get ready to close out the conversation today, it's more just looking at now as well as into the future, specifically on the market right now. So it was a few years ago, I heard a contractor here locally who had this saying. I think it was around 2024 or 23, something like that. They said they had a saying, our mantra, like, survive until 25. I've heard that. And then when we're in 2025 right now. It's like survive 25. So, and then now we got 26. I've heard, chatter about a potential recession. I don't know. So I'm just curious to see your thoughts, where you're at, where you're seated today. What do you see the state of construction specifically here in the Pacific Northwest? And if you want to commentate on just the U.S. as well, that's totally cool. But I know you're here locally, and so I'm just curious, what are you seeing in 2026 from a market perspective as it relates to construction and everything going on?
I think that 26 is going to be a gangbuster year. I think it's now that the Fed has actually moved and lowered interest rates and looks like they're targeting additional rate reductions, and because the tariff money has just set the economy on fire, I think that you're starting to see literally billions and approaching over $1 trillion of investment from outside countries into the United States of America, building stuff. We're building stuff here again. All of a sudden, it's really popular to build stuff in the United States. Imagine that. And the greatest manufacturing centers on the planet are in the United States. The greatest cities are in the United States. And they're across the board growing. The transit systems are growing. The airports are growing. The energy production is increasing. Data centers are being built as fast as they can spit them out. Why? Because they'd rather be in Mexico? They'd rather be in Indonesia? I don't think so. They want to be in the United States. So 26 is going to see the downstream consequences, the supply side being played out of more money in every taxpayer's pocket, right? The big, beautiful bill that passed is going to put more money in the hands of working families almost across the board. There's almost no exception to that. If you're uber rich, I guess not, but if you are, under $500,000 or whatever the threshold was a year of W-2 income, your take-home pay will go up. The consequence of that is people have more money to spend. When they have more money to spend, they buy stuff. When they buy stuff, people who are selling the stuff have to build the stuff. If they have to build the stuff, that means they need factories and plants. And so that's what's happening in 26. You see it being played out, and it's going to be a gangbuster year.
What are you seeing from like because I know that a few years ago, a lot of at one point, Seattle was crane city. Tons of
58 tower cranes.
Yeah,
yep.
58, and building all these office buildings. I'm sure also mixed use and things like that. Like from an actual structure, buildings, things like that. Like, what are you seeing happening here in Seattle here in the future?
Well, Seattle is going to have challenges because they have, they have a crazy government that is bound and determined to try and turn us into a socialist state or a communist state. It'll fail on the merits, just like it failed in Venezuela and failed in every other country that's tried to do this. It's not good economics. So the consequence of that is that lease spaces are already being vacated by Amazon and Microsoft and other tech companies. Why? They don't want to pay the additional costs of doing business in Seattle. Now, there still will be someone to fill in the vacuum. Why? Just like with federal tax dollars. When there's dollars to be handed out, someone will wait in line and go through the pain of what it takes to take those dollars. So someone will fill in. But what's going to happen is other cities will have more growth. So you see this right now on the east side.
Yep.
Why is the East Side booming? Why is Issaquah booming? Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond. Because they don't have the same set of nonsensical rules that you have in Seattle. Look at how many homeless people hang out in Kirkland or Redmond or Bellevue compared to Seattle. Why? Why? It has to do with the government that's in control in those cities, what they allow, what they don't allow. So, this gets into political ideology. I understand that. But the reality is there is nothing but expansion in the future for Washington State. There's expansion. We are getting ready to build the dry dock number 4, I think it is, in Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. There's preliminary work being done right now. We're working on that with one of the general contractors. But there is a bigger project coming to rebuild that whole shipyard. It's $6 to $8 billion.
Wow.
Now, $6 to $8 billion in the town of Bremerton is going to turn that city upside down. If the Navy's doing that, imagine all the grocery stores, apartment complexes, mini storages. Just pick a business that's going to grow and expand over on the other side of the bridge. Whole apartment complexes are being built right now by speculative developers. Why? Because of all the people that are coming to work at the expanded Navy base. And the RFP hasn't even come out yet. But it's coming, and the tax dollars are already allocated for it. So, data centers. They are building data centers in Wenatchee and Quincy, anywhere they can put, wherever land is cheaper and power is accessible. The large IT companies, Microsoft, Google, Meta, they all in turn are chasing, how can we have our own data centers? How can we have our own power plants to power the data centers? Microsoft says, I don't want to be on the grid. There's not enough power lines to, let's build our own nuclear power plant for our own data center. That's what they'll do. It's on their board of directors list of items to get done. Google has a different idea. Let's build the data centers in, some out of the place location like West Virginia. Why? Well, there's coal. And we can do a coal-fired gas plant right there at the data center, be off the grid. Somewhere else they're going to build a data center. Well, how is it powered? It's geothermal. So the idea of any one geographical city being like New York City. New York City is where all finance was done forever. Not so much anymore, right? Texas is setting up their own exchange. And with the internet and AI and how things are changing with how money is handled, all of the old systems may go away in a few years. So I think that the brick and mortar structure that has to be built out in this state is not slowing down anytime soon. Aerospace still needs the workers in Washington. IT still needs the workers in Washington. The geographical location with the ports is strategic. The military bases are strategic. And what's coming out of, our tech giants, a lot of it's happening right here in Seattle. It's not all in Silicon Valley. So, I'm very optimistic about the future. But you know me, I'm a glass half full guy. I've been saying this for 25 years. I've been saying the same thing for 25 years. I haven't changed my mind about it. The economy in Washington is getting ready to explode. And we're right in the middle of it.
I love it. And this is part of the reason why I love talking to entrepreneurs, business owners, because there is that level of like even if your back's against the wall, saying there's still a chance. And
Absolutely.
But then obviously you mentioned certain proof points of, the impact of tariffs and the benefit that has been able to, restore reserves, things like that, pay off debt, and just everything even happening locally of people realizing maybe, the centralized area in Seattle's not it. The east side, though, is more open. And so I just love that it's not just the optimism, but then there's also proof. It's like, hey, here are all the, but it's easy to just focus on, especially too with whether it's social media or online. It has a pessimistic bent.
It does.
The world is falling apart, guys. Like, oh my.
Bad news sells. Bad news sells. Yeah. The horror, it sells.
Yeah, it does.
It sells. Look at places like Chehalis and Centralia. Look at the number of warehouses, massive warehouses being built. Huge ones. 2 million square feet, one building. Why are they building them? Because there's a demand, there's a need. There's cheaper land down there, so they're going to build it down there. The state's expanding, not contracting.
I love it. Yeah, so thank you so much, Jesse, for coming on the pod, and really, really insightful conversation. I feel like we took a lot of different turns, but it was super interesting, the entire pathway. And yeah, appreciate you sharing your story, your experience, wisdom. And anybody who wants to learn more about Jesse, he's on LinkedIn, active on there. And what's your website for your?
www.stfab.com.
Awesome. So feel free to go learn more about Jesse and his company there. Obviously, you have ST Fab, you have JBiz Construction, and JBiz Coatings. And with that said, thanks again for coming on the pod.
Thanks again.